Hello everyone. So a little bit different today. YouTube tells me that today is the National Video Game Day. So I want to talk about the best video game I have ever played, which is Baldur's Gate 2. So when I was about 15 or 16, I was in Dublin city centre with some of my friends, and I stopped by a game store. I believe it was HMV, which primarily works with music, but they had a basement section for games. It was mostly console games, and there was a small section for PC games. At the time, my mum said I wasn't allowed to have a console because she rightly thought that I would spend way too much time on it. So I wandered over to the PC games. I was kind of looking through it for a while, but I couldn't find anything great, and I was about to go until this game caught my eye. And it was 3 RPGs in one. Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale, and Invictus. And so I hadn't heard of any of them, but I was like, yeah, I like RPGs, I'll give it a go. And yeah, that was that. Invictus never really captured me, to be honest. I never played it that much. And I can't remember too much about it. Icewind Dale, on the other hand, was quite good. It was spread over 2 discs at the time, I believe. I'll probably have a review of that later at some point on this channel. But nothing could hold a torch to Baldur's Gate 2. I think it was spread over 4 discs, which at the time was just incredible that there was so much content. But now, let's get into the game. The game picks up after the events of Baldur's Gate 1. You don't need to have played that first one because you can be the same character or a different character, and the NPCs from the past game who are present in this one can also fill you in on who they are as necessary. I played through this, I'd say probably 5 or 6 times, or at least partially, before I ever played Baldur's Gate 1. So there's no need to have played the first one at all. This was released in, I think, the year 2000, so I don't need to worry about any spoilers, but I guess if you want to avoid them, you can stop watching now. So in the story, you have been captured by the powerful mage, John Irenicus. He wants to torture you to help you realize your true potential. You find out soon enough, if you don't already know from the previous games, that you are a child of Baal, the god of murder, and you're called a Baal spawn. A woman called Imoen, comes over and helps you out of your cage, and you must release 2 other former companions. The highlight, for me anyway, being Minsk and Boo. Minsk is this very powerful barbarian who talks to his pet miniature giant space hamster. And naturally these characters became very popular, and there was a D&D release called Minsk and Boo's Journal of Villainy, I think. And Boo was also used recently in the D&D 5th edition Spelljammer release, which I haven't looked at. To be honest, I really kind of preferred it when I thought Boo was just a regular hamster and Minsk thought that he had travelled through space. Kind of confirming that Minsk was right takes away from it a bit, in my opinion. But obviously Boo is very marketable as well. So you make your way out of the prison, which I think the prison is maybe the most railroady part of the entire game. It does have some different options that you can choose and different ways around it, but every time I restart the game, I always find just the initial part until you get out of the dungeon, which is not particularly long. I always find that just a little bit boring, I guess, repetitive. It just takes time, and I want to be out in the world. But anyway, yeah, you make your way out of the prison, and Irenicus starts using magic, and so does Imoen, who released you, who is also your childhood friend, who you travelled with a lot. And then you find out that you are in the city of Am, where I'm never sure how to pronounce that, Amn, where the cowled wizards have a ban on magic unless you have a license. And Irenicus and Imun are captured and taken away, and now you're out of the dungeon, and it becomes completely open world from here. Almost completely open world. The overarching plot is to find and save Imwin, who, as I said before, is your childhood friend from Baldur's Gate 1. And it's referenced a little bit before this, anyway. You find out that she has been taken to Spellhold, which is a prison island used to contain magic users. Someone approaches you and tells you that they can get you there, but it will cost you about 20,000 gold pieces. At this stage, if you've collected everything, you probably have somewhere between 200 and 300 gold pieces, maybe. So how can you possibly raise that much? So this is where the game really opens up, and you go on a lot of side quests. And overall, these side quests are great. Some of them are really long and in depth and help to build up such an amazing world. Some of them are very short as well. So you can explore the rest of the city, and this is a really deep and well-built city. You can't go to all of, comparing it to the actual city in some of the D&D guides, you can't go to every district, but they've built up some of the districts so much that you don't want for anything else. There's the slums, the government district, the temple district, Walking's Promenade, the bridge district, the graveyard district. I think that's everything. But each one of those, the bridge is the smallest one, but it still has some good. Oh, and the city gates. The city gates almost negligible, although they have some interesting things there. But you will never want for content here. You can also leave the city and go out into the where would you say? Into the wildlands, the wilderness, I guess. Once you pick up those directions from quests, you can uncover beholder lairs. You can even travel interdimensionally. One way is available only if you, the main character, is a mage. Oh no, I think you can do it even without that. And the other is if you help a bard in need. And there are liches and dragons to fight as well. All of this can take a huge amount of time, but it is so enjoyable. There's lots of choices that you can make to kind of decide if your character is going to be good or evil or anywhere in between. The dialogue is excellent with great voice acting, and depending on your main character's class, you will have different stronghold quests, which will allow you to take certain quests to further extremes. So I think the traveling interdimensionally or to different planes is possible for all characters, I think. But if you are a mage, there's a little bit further that you can take it. If you are a druid, you might have the chance to become the leader of a druid grove. If you are the fighter, you can become the ruler of a local keep as well. And so lots and lots of different things, and all of them have extra elements that just kind of flesh it out a little bit more. Yeah, so really fantastic. Your party members are NPCs, but they're under your command. But they are not just passive companions. They will interact with each other, and depending on their alignment, will argue and possibly refuse to work with each other. They also treat you the same way. If you act in particularly evil ways, if you choose the evil options, good characters will leave. And if you're too good and righteous, some of the evil characters will also leave. And sometimes they will actually, the NPCs, I don't know if I've seen NPCs fight the main character. I somehow doubt that. But your party members will fight each other in certain circumstances as well. So yeah, great writing anyway. And certain characters have their own, like, these are all fully fledged adventurers as well with their own lives, so they have important character arcs that sometimes they'll ask you for advice on them. And all of your actions, all of your advice, all of these have consequences. In particular, without any spoilers, I particularly love the development of Animan and Keldorn, both individually and their kind of interaction between each other, with the kind of mentor-mentee, but stubborn, spoiled child as well, is very interesting. So anyway, after you've done all of these events, and as I said, this can be a huge part of your game. This is the real open world. You will have a chance to come back to a lot of these places later if you have something you want to finish. But once you've raised 20,000 gold pieces, you are approached by a rival guild saying they can do the same thing for you for 15,000. And you just have to meet them at the graveyard. The initial person comes back to say that they've reduced their price to 15,000 as well. So now you have to make a decision which of the rival guilds to work with. The Shadow Thieves, who were the original ones who offered it to you, or the new Vampire Guild. The Shadow Thieves are an especially well-developed guild, I think, who have influences throughout the city, mostly in the docks. But vampires in D&D, before 5th edition anyway, I'm not sure about 4th edition, but before 5th edition, vampires were scary. They have things like energy drain and level drain, so you will be actually losing experience if you fight against them. So those attacks were absolutely crushing. So you really have to make a choice between which group do you want to run afoul of. The group that is really built its way deep into the workings of everything in the city, and the members are there's many members of it, or the Guild of Vampires, which is much smaller, much fewer vampires, but very strong as well. For me, I almost always sided with the Shadow Thieves. Although they're thieves, they're significantly less evil characters than the vampires, and yeah, I usually go through as good, or at least not evil characters, usually. So once you decide which team to go with, you pay your 15,000 and you make it to Spellhold. There will be a little bit of inter-guild fighting, or something you'll have to sort out depending on which side you choose. But you make it a Spellhold, and then you get captured by Irenicus, who has now taken over Spellhold. He is going to take your soul now, and he says that Imoen, your childhood friend, who is also a ball spawn, so offspring of the god of murder, has had her soul taken too and put into Bodhi. And Bodhi is the head of the Vampire Guild, and she is also Irenicus's sister. Bodhi wants to hunt you, and so Irenicus basically leaves you at this point for Bodhi to play with you, and she wants to hunt you in a maze. So she puts you in a maze underneath Spellhold, and she gives you little bits of hope that maybe you could get out, or maybe you could get your soul back, or maybe you could stop Irenicus, just to kind of bait you along the maze. But at this point, the main character, so your main character, doesn't have a soul, and as a result they keep changing into the Slayer, which is an avatar of Baal. So you become very powerful, but you could also attack or maybe even kill some of your party members as well. So this is you struggling without your soul. But anyway, after escaping this, you will have two options to leave Spellhold. One is on the boat that you came in on, and the other is through a tunnel or a portal into the Underdark underneath Spellhold. Bit of a spoiler warning, but definitely go via the ship, because eventually if you go via the ship, you will also be able to come back to the same part of the Underdark, but you also get an extra kind of side adventure where you are captured on the ship and dragged underwater to the Sahuagin, kind of like fish people city. And after that, yeah, it leads back to the Underdark. It's just an extra little bit there, which I always thought was very interesting, and there's some nice items there too. So after you get through there, you'll get to the Underdark, and you're kind of following John Irenicus's trail here. And the Underdark is great, but it is brutal as well. You will probably die many times here, so use that quick save option. And I mentioned before that vampires are awful because of the level drain. But mind flayers are possibly worse as well. They are so powerful, it's really difficult to go up against them. And again, their numbers are usually slow, but they have the ability to control your mind. So they're not particularly strong, and they can be killed pretty easily if you can get to them. But you won't get to them. And I believe they have quite strong magic resistance as well. And this is great if you've read any of the novelizations. I'm actually just reading through one at the moment, rereading the first set in a very old book. Mind flayers are very evil and very powerful as well. After that, you also have a chance, so still in the Underdark, you also have a chance to infiltrate a drow city. And similarly, if you've read anything about drow cities, you will know that you're in for a challenge. There's also an interesting choice here as well, where you make a good or an evil choice whether or not to kill a silver dragon. Obviously, killing a silver dragon is a terrible thing to do. It's a very evil thing to do because they're a very pure creature. But if you kill them, you can take the dragon scales and get that forged into quite a nice set of armor as well. But generally, you don't want to be killing the silver dragon. So anyway, once you get out of the Underdark, you're just outside of the elven city of Soldaneselar, something like that, and you're being attacked by the elven army, who assumes that anything coming out of the Underdark is evil. But when they find out that you're looking after Irenicus, or sorry, you're looking for Irenicus, they tell you that he has captured the city and has made it magically invisible, or they're not able to return. So anyway, you make it through there and you find out that Irenicus is draining the power of the Tree of Life, which will destroy Soldaneselar. And so basically you'll fight against him. You get a lot more revelation about his backstory as well, which is very good as well. But if you defeat him, he will escape to hell with your soul. So you have to go to hell and defeat him, and that there in hell, good or bad, is where the story is going to end. So that's the main plot. Pretty much all of the main characters are really fleshed out and have very believable motivations for everything. The decisions that you make really matter and have an impact on the game and how you are treated by others. The world feels very real and authentic as well. There's a lot of lore built into it. Throughout the game, you can often find just on bookshelves tomes which you can read through to get more lore of the game. But I never really read them. It seemed a little bit boring to me. But the good thing is that most of the lore of the world comes through naturally while playing the game. So you don't have to go in with any knowledge, and you don't have to really do much reading at all. Another great thing for a Dungeons and Dragons game is that dragons are very strong and hard to kill. Don't think that you'll just be able to take them on easily. And there are a number of dragons that you can face. I believe there's green, black, red, silver, potentially. That's all that I can think of for the moment, but there might be some others. But if you're going to go and fight against them, make sure that you're a high level. Make sure that you've got some good dragon weapons and dragon armor to give yourself the best chance. But even still, they're quite a challenge. The game itself is incredibly replayable because the main plot itself is excellent, but you can really get so immersed in the rest of the world by doing all of the side quests. The idea of collecting 20,000 gold pieces is a little bit contrived, but it works very well to force you to explore everything in the realm and kind of get really immersed in the world. And then once you find out about the guild war between the vampires and the shadow thieves, the high price actually does make sense as well. So yeah, it's not that bad. Playing as different classes will also give you different experiences, and your alignment can change everything as well. There are a lot of different combinations you can make of your party members. I believe there's something like 20 different NPCs that you can choose from to make your party of you plus an additional up to 5, so a party of 6. So lots of different combinations, some good, some bad, some evil, some in between, some friendly and happy, some sour and complaining all the time. Really, really great. And there are different interactions with each other and with the main party leader yourself is great. You can choose to create a party all of your own designed characters, and that will give you probably the most powerful party, because you can choose people that perfectly complement each other's weaknesses, or your play style as well. But unfortunately you miss out on a lot of the fun interactions between the characters. So I have done that sometimes, but it is better to use the characters, I think, for the immersion. In Baldur's Gate 1, which I have not played to completion, you start off at a weak level 1, and you slowly gain small amounts of power until the end, when I believe you reach maybe level 8, I think, depending on your class. But in Baldur's Gate 2, you start off already relatively powerful, around about level 8. But again, it depends on your character class. But as you grow from there, you really feel powerful. But even still, the enemies are more powerful. When we're talking about liches and dragons, you know, certainly in this version of Dungeons and Dragons, it's not going to be an easy fight, kind of regardless of how powerful you have become. There's also some great items. For example, the Equalizer, which is a famous, would it be a relic? A famous sword anyway, which is broken into different pieces, and you have to collect it throughout the game to finally forge it. The only slight downside to that is that by the time you have collected it all, it maybe seems a little bit weak in comparison to the other things that you can have. If you were to get that earlier on, it would seem like a much more powerful weapon. So to fix this, well, it's still a lot of fun, but to fix it, maybe it would be good if you could either get it a little bit earlier, or if it were more powerful when you get it. But minor thing. So super spoiler time here. Not to do with the story, but this is a quick way to get infinite money, but it's pretty cheesy. It's not technically a cheat, but it actually makes the playthrough a lot less enjoyable, because you don't work your way up through it. You just have all the money all the time, and you can get it almost immediately once you escape the initial dungeon. The enhanced edition did solve it a little bit, but you can still do it. So if you are looking for a way to kind of like speed run through this is probably the way without actually cheating. But if you don't, yeah, you can ignore this part here. Maybe I'll just have a small thing down in the corner that says spoiler warning, and that will go away once this section is over. So when you steal items in the game, you can steal them from almost every merchant. Most shopkeepers won't buy them because they've been fenced or stolen. However, if you go to Mavar's guild house in the docks, which is part of the Shadow Thieves guild, you can sell stolen items. That's the only place in the game. Even the other Shadow Thieves warehouse, you can't do it. Only in Mavar's guild house. So for the infinite money, well, as long as you have the patience, first save your game. Seriously, save your game right now. And then get your thief to drink some potions of master thievery. Probably 3 to 4 depending on your starting level. But you can try it first with 1 or 2 and attempt it, and then reload your game if it didn't work. And just drink 3 or 4. And get them to steal a mace plus 2. I think it costs 2,000 gold points to buy it. And when you sell it back, I think you only get maybe 4,000 or 400 gold pieces back. But obviously we're stealing it. In the original game, there was a near unlimited supply of these. So your thief would steal, I think 20 of them was the inventory limit, and then sell them back to get about 8,000 gold pieces each time. So you just keep doing that until you have as much money as you want, or you've run out of patience. When I did this, I usually would get up to about 200,000 gold pieces or so. The updated version, the enhanced edition, does solve this a little bit, in that there's only 1 mace plus 2, I think. But just fine, you can do the same. That was just a faster way to do it. I would just go through Mayvar's list and see what the most expensive things are, steal them, and then start selling them back. And just once you sell them back, they reappear in the inventory. So you can steal them, sell them, steal them, sell them. And do you remember when I mentioned to save your game first? If you get caught stealing, you're dead. Basically, you're dead. Shadow thieves will instantly appear out of the shadows and backstab you. And I think that's like an almost insta-kill for that level of shadow thieves. And the backstab, I think the backstab damage multiplier is something like times 4 or times 8. So you're just going to die. It might be possible, I think it might be possible to survive if you run away very quickly. But you've made some serious enemies, and it might actually stop you from progressing in the game, because there's some things that you have to do later in the game in Mayvar's guild house, and I don't think you'd be able to get back in and overcome those thieves. But anyway, yeah. So just save it first before trying it, and then go in. If he catches you stealing, it's pretty much game over. But remember that this strategy does definitely cheapen the experience of the game, so I would use it sparingly. I would certainly not use it on your first run through, but if you want to, there it is. So that's the end of the spoiler warning. And that's about all I can say for this video. I cannot recommend this game highly enough. It is the absolute gold standard of computer RPGs. And even though it's 22 years later, I think it is still right up there. Still very, very playable at this game. It's such a deep and broad game. Great storyline, great characters, and so much replayability. Now, I've personally played through it so many times, in so many different ways, and there's always something new to find. I'm trying to keep my expectations down for Baldur's Gate 3 so that I won't be disappointed. Overall, I don't love the more modern stylistic approach it's taken, which makes it look a little bit closer to an MMORPG than the original isometric pattern. But I understand that's just my personal taste. I'm sure it will be an excellent game, and if it kind of exposes more people, maybe they'll come back and have a look at Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. That's great. So 10 out of 10, I would recommend this game every time. Go play it if you haven't already. Even with my spoilers here, if you've listened through the whole thing, you will still find a million new things to interest you in the game. So let me know in the comments what your favorite parts of the game were, and I will see you next time.